Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's session Guide to Penetration Testing Navigating the Legal and Ethical Landscape. This is the third session in our series with Rodney Gullatte. I am Renal Vicaria, and I'll be your host for today. If you missed the first and second session of this CEH series, you can find the links to watch them shared in the chat section. Before we get started, we would like to go over a few house rules. For our attendees, the session will be in listen-only mode and will last for an hour, out of which last 15 minutes will be dedicated to Q&A. Now, let's hear directly from our speaker Rodney Gullatte as he introduces himself and share insights on the topic Guide to Penetration Testing.
All right. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for allowing me to do this. Good morning or good evening, wherever in the world you are. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in to session number 3 of the Great EC Council Cyber Talks webinar for me with the Guide to Penetration Testing, Navigating the Legal and Ethical Landscapes. Appreciate all of you being here this morning. And thank you to everybody who has reached out to me on LinkedIn. I encourage you, if you have not reached out to me on LinkedIn, please go ahead and do it. Find me. There's only one Rodney Gullatte Jr. on the whole grid. So I'd love to keep talking to you and inspiring you and uh, leading you down this great road. This is a great profession. This is good work that we do here at EC Council. So let's see. So my name is Rodney Gullatte Jr. Right now, I currently hold 3 EC Council certifications out of my total 13 certs. Certified Ethical Hacker, Certified Chief Information Security Officer, and Certified Network Defense Architect. And I am honored to have been inducted into the 2023 EC Council CCSO Hall of Fame. So congratulations to all my other CCSOs who are also on that list in the Hall of Fame. You're all amazing, and it's awesome to be listed among you. I am the CEO of Firma IT Solutions. It's a business I started 13 years ago, and I am a commercial pen testing provider. So we do pen testing on all kinds of organizations, hospitals, municipalities, private companies, you name it, healthcare organizations. I mean, we just had a healthcare organization here in Colorado that got 1.8 million records compromised in October. So I bet they wish they had got a pen test, And it's funny when I do these incident response jobs around the world. Every single one I've done this year, nobody has either heard of a pen test or gotten one. So it's nice to be proactive and get a pen test done before the bad guys make an example out of you. It's a lot better that way. It's expensive to learn after the fact. I'm on the board of directors for the Colorado Springs Chamber and EDC, the Cultural Office of the Pikes Peak region, and the National Cybersecurity Center. I am a husband, been married 20 years to my beautiful wife, Iris. I'm a father of 3 kids, 17, 13, and 5. Yes, that's a big gap. And to all you parents out there with teenagers, keep up the good work. It can be tough sometimes. And I love my community, so I do a lot of work in my community. But today, my community involves all of you. So we're going to talk about some legal frameworks involved around penetration testing. And the key takeaways today will be understanding how to define methodologies and the scope of penetration testing, developing and integrating a legal framework to govern penetration testing, best practices for ethically conducting a penetration test, common legal pitfalls to avoid while conducting a penetration test, and balancing holistic security and authorization via pen testing. So I encourage you to take some notes. Luckily for you, if you missed this talk or you missed something that I say today, EC Council will be restreaming this on their YouTube channel. So make sure that you check out the YouTube channel for EC Council. Make sure you subscribe. All right, EC Council. And take away some really awesome lessons that we're going to learn this morning. So let's jump in. The methodology and the scope. If you were here with me last month, I went over the methodology of performing an effective pen test. And the methodology that I use is the MITRE ATT&CK framework. So if you want to go over all those pieces, you can look at my last cyber talk. But this is the methodology that I use for the pen test that I do. Some of the questions that you need to have with your client prior to performing this pen test is identify how many internal and external IP addresses you're going to attack. If they have no idea, that may end up making you charge them more to have to find things out that they can't give you. But that's typically how you're going to set up your payment and like how much you're going to charge for the pen test based on how many IPs you're going to be attacking. Another thing to think about is don't attack other SaaS service providers like Microsoft 365. Don't point your pen testing tools at that system. What do they not want you to attack with your pen test? So find exclusions. Maybe there's some critical servers or critical network devices that should not be hit or should be hit at different times. So make sure you ask and find out which things should be excluded from your testing scope. What time do they want the pen test to happen? So I have some school districts out here that have asked me, Rodney, do you want us to do it during the school year, or do you want us to do it during the summer when there's not really a whole bunch of people here? And for me, I like to run pen tests when everybody's at work. So I want it run during the school year. I want it run when the kids are at school using the computers. I want it run at school when the superintendents and the staff are all using their computers and connecting to the internet and using services. Like I want everything like really wild and in use when I run my pen test, so I can get more of a real world scenario when I'm hitting everything. Set the expectation that you will not find everything, okay? And one of the other expectations out there that I tell clients that nothing is 100% secure. If you're ever working with a cybersecurity professional and they can tell you, yes, without a shadow of a doubt, we can protect you from all the cyber attacks. It's not true. What we're trying to do here as cybersecurity professionals and by implementing pen testing is to keep you from being low-hanging fruit, keep you from being an easy target. There's a lot of easy targets out there. If you're using IPv6 and you shouldn't be, you're an easy target. If you have anonymous FTP access on your network printer with full permissions to read, write, and execute, you are an easy target. And we're here to find those things before the bad guys make an example out of you. So, we're not going to find everything, but we will find a lot of things that will help your IT and cybersecurity teams fix the issue that we find as pen testers. And I'm going to go over that in a minute, why you as a pen tester should not be fixing what you find. That's part of your legal framework as well. Ask the question, have they had a pen test before? If they haven't, this is a new experience for them, and it's going to be shocking to them. It's going to be shocking to their IT and cybersecurity support. So make sure you have some great bedside manner, right? Be sympathetic to that, because this is very revealing to people. To IT and cyber teams, you are pulling the curtain back on all their work, and it can make some people feel quite uncomfortable when you find things wrong with the systems that they're very proud of protecting, that they've got holes in that protective that framework. Is this going to be a black box, white box, or gray box? Black box means I don't know anything about this network at all. I'm just going in blind. White boxes, they're telling me everything I need to know about this network and some. The gray box, it may be half and half. I may have some information, but not all. And what Windows domain should be included in the engagement? What does the forest look like? How many domains do we have? Where are the domains physically throughout the enterprise? Will I be able to hit your entire network from one location, or do I need to set up appliances to run pen tests in multiple locations? Those are all great questions to ask. The legal framework to penetration testing. This is where we're going to get a little deep for a few minutes. When you write your contracts, you need to be very thorough, okay? The biggest part is for you to cover yourself, because we're going to be doing a lot to this company, to these clients. We're going to be getting into their files. We're going to be breaking past their firewalls. We're going to be getting into their servers, and once you fine tune this process, it should be pretty invisible. It shouldn't mess up any of their daily operations. Everything should be able to run just fine. They shouldn't even know you're there when you're running these pen tests if you run them correctly. The most important thing, in my opinion, is not to proceed without a written contract, okay? You'll hear stories about people that will run attacks on organizations, uh, do an ethical hack of an organization, and then come tell the organization later, hey, I hacked into your stuff. Here's your report. They didn't ask you to hack into anything. That can get you in a lot of trouble. Um, Maybe the client will say, yes, we want you to run the pen test. And then you're so excited to get started, you set up everything and you start the pen test and they haven't signed your contract yet. Do not do anything until you get a signed contract. Okay, that's so important. Make sure you have insurance for yourself as a pen tester. All right. If you end up breaking something, you want to be insured against that. All right. Define your payment terms. For me, I require my payment up front before I do the pen test. I don't do it afterwards. I don't do it after I've given them the client the deliverables and all the reports and then ask for the payment, because then they've got what they want and I don't have what I want. So make sure you get your money first and then run your pen test. Another piece that you want to have in your contract is client cooperation. You want to have a section for that, and it's not very long. It's pretty much saying that the client agrees to reasonably cooperate with you, and they further agree to take any and all actions reasonably necessary to enable you to perform this pen test in an effective and efficient manner. It's pretty much what client cooperation means. Limitation of liability pretty much says in no event will either party or suppliers be liable to the other, whether in contract or in tort or under any other legal theory, for lost profits or revenues or loss of data. You need to limit your liability for anything that you're going to do with this pen test. Notwithstanding, we're not going to have any gross negligence or willful misconduct. We're not going to have any breach of confidentiality under the pen test contract. We're going to do everything the way we're supposed to. Use of name and publicity. Let's say I run a pen test on EC Counsel, right? I'm not going to go and do a presentation and be like, hey, I ran a pen test on EC Counsel and I found this and I found that and I found the other. That is not without their permission to do that. So, if you're running pen tests on organizations, don't go around talking about who you run the pen test on unless you've got, permission from the client to do that. Ownership of deliverables. So your deliverables as a pen tester are your reports. And your reports will have a lot of confidential information in it. We're going to get to confidential information in another slide in a minute. But you own those deliverables. When you give those deliverables to the client, they own those deliverables. And then there's another set. We're going to get into confidentiality in a minute. But your methodologies, how you ran the pen test, the things you discovered in the pen test, those things belong to the client once you deliver them. The cancellation policy, you need to have that written, because sometimes you'll get everything set up to run this pen test and then the client wants to cancel like the day you're supposed to start running the pen test. So you need to make sure you write out in your contract that, hey, the client agrees to provide me with at least 10 days notice prior to an intentional delay, or if it's going to take me longer to provide the deliverables, I need to let the client know that also. But you need to be let known beforehand if there's going to be any kind of cancellations. Let's see, what else do we have? Next slide. Non-solicitation and contracting. So what's interesting, when you do these pen testings, you're going to be a magician to your client. They're going to be like, wow, I can't believe you just hacked our organization and found all these things. Can I hire you? Can I hire your employee that just ran this pen test? No. So in your contract, the non-solicitation states that your client cannot try to poach or offer your pen testing engineer a job. For my contracts, it says that the client agrees that it and its employees will not, either during or for a period of 12 months after conclusion of the services, solicit to hire as an employee or contractor anybody that works for me after doing this pen test. And if they end up trying to hire somebody prior to that 12 months, they agree to pay me within 30 days of that hiring date an amount equal to 1/2 of the person's annual compensation at my company. So just make sure you spell all that out. The governing law, I live in the state of Colorado, here in the United States of America. So my contracts are legally binding here in the state of Colorado. So those laws, if I have to go to court or anything, it'll be Colorado law that governs my contract. So I make sure that I write that in there. Force majeure, it's a provision in contracts that frees both parties from an obligation if an extraordinary event directly prevents one or both parties from performing the job. So, if I don't know, if the company has a fire or one of their buildings explodes or something, I obviously can't run the pen test. That would fall under force majeure. So we'll be out of it. They don't have to pay me anything. And we'll see if we can reschedule or maybe do the pen test at another time. That'll get them out of everything. The place of performance is where you are stating where you're going to do this work. So is it going to be rendered at the client's facilities, at their subcontractors' facilities? Will I be running the pen test from my facility to attack your facility? So all that needs to be written out in the place of performance. The work standards has several pieces to it. So the first one is that the work will be done by worthy and well-qualified professionals, right? This isn't somebody who went to YouTube university with no certs, no experience, and now all of a sudden we're going to run pen tests. Like, no, you're going to have certifications, you're going to have experience, maybe have degrees in this thing. So that's the first piece. The second piece is that the services will be performed for and the deliverables provided to the client in a good, diligent, and workmanlike manner in accordance with industry standards. So your work is going to be done top-notch, high standards, above standards. The other piece that goes into the work standards is if the work is not done the way it's supposed to be, the client has 30 days to tell me that the work is not done to standards, at which time I'll redo the work. And if the work is still not okay after we do it the second time, then I'll refund the money for the services. But, right, and this is, in legal talk, like you really have to spell everything out. So all those conditions are great, but if my company is not responsible for non-conformities arising from inaccurate or incomplete data or information provided by the client, or failures or delays caused by the client's failure to perform its obligations under this contract. So if you don't give me the information I need, if you tell me we're going to run this pen test over the weekend and then like you kill the power to all your facilities over the weekend, I can't run the pen test. So like, you can't hold me responsible if you're keeping me from doing a good job. Service and deliverables. So the services performed by my company are defined as the services, and the deliverables are the reports. So you just defining both of those things in your contract. Now we get to the confidential information. Okay. There's a lot of stuff you're going to be passing back and forth with your client, and you need to keep all that stuff confidential. On my contracts, I have confidential written on every single page of the contract because this is an agreement between me and the client, not anybody else. So they understand that. I understand that. I'm not sending, because I work with a lot of companies who have competitors in the same space. I may have 5 construction companies in a geographical area, and I'm doing pen testing on all 5 of them. I shouldn't be sending the information about their pen test to any of the other ones at all. This is all confidential. When you are passing information back and forth, like let's say you have IP scopes that you need to ask the IT department for the client, send that through encrypted email. Don't send that through open email without encryption. You need to keep that information confidential. When you give your reports back, you're going to have IP addresses, you're going to have usernames and passwords and all that stuff written in the reports. All that stuff needs to be kept confidential. The need to know. Not everybody needs to know what you're doing or how it's being done. So the receiving party, which is your client, may disclose confidential information that I give them to their employees, officers, directors, or representatives who have a reasonable need to know of this confidential information. And they should not violate this provision. Once I give this information over to the client, they own it, it's theirs. And I will still retain a copy of the penetration test reports. The systems, which are like the servers and the websites and the usernames and the passwords, all that stuff is within scope of my penetration test. I only need that information to run the penetration test, and I don't need it for anything else. So typically when all that work is done, I don't need that information anymore. I wipe that information from my records. And the ownership is that, the client owns these reports when we're finished. Let's see, next slide here. So the best practices for ethically conducting the pen testing. As a pen tester, you ethically cannot fix what you find. All right. And people ask me that, Rodney, after you run this pen test, can you fix what your findings are? I was like, no, this is for your IT department or your third-party IT to manage. And I tell people before we start these pen testings that they're typically for clients, businesses, organizations that already have either internal IT or outsourced IT, because they're the ones that are going to fix this stuff when we're finished. Don't get caught up in the position where you're trying to fix things after you find them. That's not how we do it. If you are an IT provider or the MSP, the best practice is for you to hire a third party to facilitate the pen test. I don't know if you guys have heard of, I think his name is Bernie Madoff here in the US, but this guy was pretty high up in, the stock market and Wall Street and all that, and the SEC, and, he was doing a lot of underhanded things. And, the authorities were asking him to self-check his work. And he was the one doing all the illegal things. So of course he would say, yeah, everything's good. There's no problem. You don't have to come over here and inspect my stuff. I'm inspecting my own stuff and it's good. So I tell all the companies out there in this situation to trust but verify. All right. Your IT providers and your IT staff, they're working really, really hard. And a pen test is a great way to help them do better in protecting your infrastructure. But they can't really hack themselves. They can try, but it's really best to get a third party to do this. This is like a third party audit of your IT and your cybersecurity work. So get it done by a third party. Don't run a pen test without the client's permission. I went over that in one of the earlier slides. And do not share the confidential information of the client with anyone. Don't be out there in your community talking about, hey, I ran a pen test on this company and I found all these things, and just out there talking with. I know you get excited that you're a pen tester and all the things that you find. So if you're going to share some of your findings, dude, make it anonymous. I can talk all day about pen tests that I've done for clients and the things that I find without letting you know who the client is in any way, shape, or form. Just like I did earlier in the talk about, like, your printer having all those exposures and your IPv6 and you being able to run RDP from the internet to inside of the network using port 3389. Like, by default, you've got a hole in your firewall for that. Like, we're going to find those things in the pen test. But keep all that information confidential with the client. Some common pitfalls to avoid: if the client doesn't want to pay you, don't do the pen test. Simple. This isn't a cheap process. All right. Every day, if you have IT support or an MSP working for your company, you're going to have real time, computer security running all the time on your network, on your hosts. So all that stuff is happening. You're going to have full scans running all the time. So this usually isn't your daily kind of testing. For me, I set up most of my clients to do this on an annual basis. Um, so, just make sure that they pay you for this. And it's going to cost a little more than just their daily kind of work. But they don't pay this all the time. It's once a year. Some clients, depending on the level in which they need to stay secure, might do this monthly. They might do this every 6 months. Um, so, don't be afraid to charge for your pen test. Find out what the market rate is in your area and charge accordingly. Um, and some people will say no. You may get more no's than yeses, and it's crazy. It's going to make you crazy because people should want to get pen tests and they won't do it for whatever reason. Just keep trying to help as many people as you can, and the ones that say yes are the ones that get the benefit from your work. Do not accept any confidential information without a contract. So I'll be working on setting up a pen test for somebody. We haven't signed the contract yet. And they'll be like, yeah, let me go ahead and send you the IP scope and let me go ahead and send you this domain and these credentials. I'm like, no, don't send me any information until we have a contract signed. Okay. Don't do any work outside of the initial consult without a contract. So that initial consult, we're just asking you, how many IPs do you have? How many sites do you have? Have you got a pen test before? I asked those questions early in the slides. But any other collection of confidential information, don't do that without a contract. Don't talk about it in public without the client's permission. We went over that. And don't drag it out, okay? Most of my pen tests, I say I'm able to start and get your reports to you within a 2-week period. And that is an under promise, over deliver kind of situation. So I'm usually done within like a week. I'm usually done before that time frame, but I give myself extra time just in case something goes wrong, just in case I need to rerun some aspects of the test again because I didn't like the results that I got the first time I ran it, because I want everything to be perfect when I give my deliverables to the client. But don't drag it out, and always make sure you communicate with the client and let them know how things are going. Balance holistic security and authorization via pen testing. Pen testing is part of a larger security strategy, and I went over that a few minutes ago. They should be doing their backups. They should be running firmware updates on their firewalls and their computer systems. Your computer system needs firmware updates also. Your Internet of Things devices, your IoT devices, they all need firmware updates. You should have your policies in place, your disaster recovery policies, your acceptable use policies, letting your employees know what they should and should not have access to. Revoke credentials after the test is complete. So this is more for the client. If you end up giving us as pen testers credentials to run the pen test, which lets us go even further into your network and into your systems, make sure you revoke that when we're done with the work. A lot of times these companies, they'll fire employees, right? And they still have their accounts open. Their emails will still be working. Their logins will still be effective. Their remote logins will still be effective. So you fired somebody, they're upset. They still have their logins, and they come in and hack you after they've been gone like 3 or 4 months because you did not revoke their credentials. So please revoke credentials after the pen testing is complete. If you have never got a pen test done, get one. All right. Again, that's another one for the clients. Get it done. This is something that you're missing. You can't just trust your IT and your MSP to be doing the right thing. Like I said, they're going to be working really hard for you, but they can't see everything. So this helps them see more of what they're doing and what holes they may have in your systems. Only trust qualified cyber engineers for this work, okay? If this person doesn't have any certifications at all, don't let them run a pen test on your network, okay? If you have somebody who is a certified ethical hacker, that's be a cool person to let do a pen test on your network. There's a certified CPENT with EC Council. Get that certification. So this is another thing for clients to look at. Whoever is doing your pen testing, make sure they are worthy and well qualified to do this work. All right. Look for those certifications. If they don't have them, find somebody else that has them. I might know somebody. Wink, wink. Spread the word about pen testing. This is for all of you on the call. A lot of people don't know that pen testing is a thing. They don't understand what it is. They don't understand why it's so important for them to get that. They don't understand why the fiduciary responsibility of an organization should be to get a penetration test. If you are trafficking people's personal information for the sake of your business, credit card information, any kind of information, any kind of business, you need to get a penetration test done. And train your IT and cyber staff so they can do better. So this is more for the clients' organizations. Your IT staff, put more money in the budget to get them more EC Council certifications. All right. Get you some certified ethical hackers on your staff. All right. Get you some CPNT people on your staff. All right. Um, there are a lot of certifications out there. For those of you who are students of the profession, which is the majority of you on this call, the more certifications, the better. All right. Just keep increasing your knowledge. Keep staying aware of the threats. Okay. Don't get comfortable, because when you get comfortable, that's when the bad guys come and get you. Speaking of furthering your education, boy, have we got something for you. Well, not me, but the EC Council has something for you. Certified Ethical Hacker version 13, powered by AI. If you haven't seen already, AI is upon us, and we're talking about a lot more, but AI has been here doing things and making decisions for us in our real world. It is also making the threat landscape a lot more complicated. So to keep yourself up to date with the latest threats and how to combat these threats, get your Certified Ethical Hacker version 13. If you haven't got Certified Ethical Hacker yet, this is the time for you to go ahead and get it. It's a great certification. It's my favorite certification out of every certification that I have. Because when I walk into a room of potential clients who are not masters of my profession, who may be doctors or lawyers or masters of some other profession, and they don't understand what a CISO is. They don't know what that is. I have to explain that to them. They don't understand what a CPNT is. I have to explain that to them. But when I walk into a room and say I'm a certified ethical hacker, man, their ears pop up. They stop talking to each other and they listen. I have their attention for as long as I need it to explain what a certified ethical hacker, because they heard of a hacker before. They heard of the criminal stuff. So now they know that I know the criminal things as well, but my job is to use all that knowledge to help people and not hurt them. And that is our charge. So become a certified ethical hacker sooner rather than later, and help the people in your communities and in your sphere of influence stay protected, so we can all be a more protected world. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for giving me a chance to speak to you today about the legal frameworks around penetration testing. I am finished. After you, facilitators.
Thank you very much, Rodney, for delivering such an insightful and informative session. We found the webinar very engaging and hope it was valuable for you as well.
Always.
So before we begin with the Q&A, I would like to inform all the attendees that this session is in sync with EC Council CEH program. EC Council Certified Ethical Hacker CEH certification is mapped to a variety of roles in the cybersecurity industry, including ethical hacker, security analyst, security consultant, site administrator, and network management executive. As per LinkedIn 2022, it lists over 1,000 jobs seeking ethical hacking skills worldwide, and individuals holding the CEH certification can earn an average annual salary of USD 96,000 in the United States. If you're interested in learning more, please participate in the poll that's going to be conducted now. Let us know your preferred mode of training and we will reach out to you. So, Roddy, should we proceed with the Q&A?
Let's do it.
Okay. So the first question is, could you please elaborate on your recommendation against using IPv6? I'm interested in understanding the potential issues or drawbacks associated with it.
Okay, cool. So we all know IPv4, your 192.168.1.1. You know, you got your 4 octets. IPv6 is hex, a lot longer. Our great friends at Microsoft make IPv6 enabled by default in all their machines, the servers, the workstations, all that. And the issue with IPv6, if you're not using it, just like anything else, if you're not using a particular protocol, turn it off, right? Because that's an attack vector that you're just leaving open for no reason. So if you have a legitimate need to use IPv6, please use it. But if you don't need it, understand that it is enabled by default, and your computers will communicate over IPv6. If IPv6 and IPv4 are both available on a computer system, IPv6 takes precedence. It'll communicate over that first. So if you're not using it, that's a problem. In my pen tests, I will create a fake IPv6 DHCP server and put it on the network, and a fake IPv6 DNS server and put that on the network. And then I see all the computers like authenticating to my rogue IPv6 devices, and that's an issue. And I can control the DNS. So like, if your bank is like, Bank of America or US Bank, I can copy that homepage for those banks. So with my fake DNS IPv6 server, when you type in usbank.com, it'll take you to my fake DNS server and to my fake US Bank homepage, where you will go to the login page and you'll type in your username and password for your bank, and you'll hit login and it doesn't work. So then you'll type in your username and password again. You hit login, it doesn't work. Then you'll try every password that you think it might be, and you'll keep hitting login, it doesn't work. What's happening is that I'm getting all of your credentials. It's going into a form that's being sent to me and whatever other nefarious third party, all because you have IPv6 on and you don't need it. So, it's not hard to turn it off. You can do it with group policy. Turn off IPv6 if you're not using it. It's a pretty bad vector if you don't need it. Hope that answers your question.
Thank you, Rodney. Our
Yep.
next question is non-solicitation contract term the same as a non-compete clause?
It's about the same. So non-solicitation is when the client that you're pen testing is trying to take your employees from you. The non-compete is if, let's say, I have, I'm here in Colorado Springs, Colorado. So let's say I don't want my employees to go working for another pen testing company in Colorado Springs. That would be a non-compete. Now, in Colorado, depending on the state or where you live, non-competes may not be enforceable. So in Colorado, I can't tell somebody they can't go work for whoever they want to work for. But I can have them sign a non-disclosure agreement, so that if they end up going to work for somebody else, they can't go over there and start telling them all the stuff, all my industry secrets and how I run my pen tests and all that kind of stuff. So it is slightly different. One is the client taking my employees, and the other one is my employee leaving to work for a competitor. So that's the difference between the non-compete and the non-solicitation.
Thank you.
Yep.
Our next question is, have you ever had an experience where you broke something major on a client system?
No, I haven't. Knocking on my wooden desk. I have not broken anything. I have not had to try to get any insurance for anything, or make an insurance claim. All my pen tests have gone without incident so far, and I've done a lot of them.
Okay, so
Yeah.
our next question is, how do you cost your pen test?
um, it depends on the size of the organization. Like I said before, how many IP addresses they have. Um, the largest pen tests that I've done so far has been about $50,000 for the pen test, and that's usually for like the larger hospitals. If it's something that's overseas, I'll charge a little bit more for that. But my range is from $10,000 to about 50, and that's been the range that I've been in so far. So I hope that answered your question. And that depends on, how many locations they have, how many IPs they have, and uh, the sensitivity of the information that they are holding. So hope that answers your question.
Thank you. Our
Yep.
next question is, in ensuring a contract exists before pen testing, what are the critical elements to look out for before accepting the contract?
Um, okay, can you repeat that question again for me?
Yes. In ensuring a contract exists before pen testing, what are the critical elements to look out for before accepting the contract?
So is this a question from the client side, do you think? Because the client's going to
I
be accepting your contract. Um, see, best way to answer that. It sounds like a question where the client would be accepting my contract. So things that the client needs to look for are, is the price agreeable? Am I scoping everything that they want to get hit with the pen test? Um, Sometimes, I've had one client, um, it's a critical infrastructure client that does water and sanitation, and they have um, 3 locations. And uh, I ran the pen test on their internal and external networks, but they also have a SCADA system, which actually runs the pumps and the water, all that stuff. And there's another service provider, IT service provider that, excuse me, manages the SCADA stuff. And that provider was not cooperative. So they did not want me to run a pen test on the SCADA side of things. And um, so the client is going to look for another SCADA provider, IT provider, um, because one of the things they really wanted in that pen test was for me to be able to go and hack that SCADA system and find things wrong with it. And I wasn't able to do it because I couldn't get any information on the SCADA system. I was authorized to do the black box on it by the client. Wasn't able to get very far with it. I needed some more information on it. Um, so the client needs to accept the contract if they like the price and if everything is in scope that they want to do. For me, um, to send out a contract to somebody, they need to have IT support already. And because if they don't, there's no point in me really running a pen test because I can already tell you they're exposed already. If you've got like your office manager as your IT person, or if the owner of the company with no IT training is running their own IT, they're going to be exposed already also. So, this is for people who are already making the investment to have somebody manage their IT, because if you're at that level of maturity, then we can start talking about the next mature thing, which is getting a pen test. I hope that answered your question.
Thank you, Rodney. Our
You're
next
welcome.
question is there any tools to defend the phishing attacks?
To defend phishing attacks,
Yes.
um, there are tools. Um, they there are SaaS providers that um, look for phishing emails, but I tell you that the best thing you can do for phishing is to train your employees. Your employees are your weakest link when it comes to these cyber attacks. That's why a bulk of them use business email compromise or phishing or vishing, spear phishing, because I can build an incredible technical solution for you. Firewalls that are super smart with AI in them and all that stuff, and network-based and host-based security systems, unified threat management. I could build all that. And then all the hacker has to do is make a phone call to your front desk person, or send them an email that looks like it's from EC Council, and it's not from EC Counsel. It says Joe Bag of Donuts at AOL.com. That's not an EC Counsel email address. So training your people to be able to recognize those threats is probably the best tool you can use in phishing. Is helping them understand it. Like people are still falling for, I don't know what it's like out there. Some of you out there in other parts of the world, but here in the States we have these gift card scams where you'll get an email from your boss saying, hey, go to the store and buy like $500 gift cards and like scratch off the back, put them in an Excel spreadsheet and send them to me. And people are still falling for that scam. That scam's been around for years. People still falling for it because they don't know about it. They haven't been trained to see it. And people who have been working for years may have had a cybersecurity briefing or training where they understand that that's a threat. But then you have young people who are coming into the workforce for the first time and they want to make their boss happy. So when they get an email from their boss, and if you can see me doing the air quotes, their boss, telling them to go buy these gift cards, they go do it because they want to make the boss happy. They hadn't been trained yet. So, knowledge is power, my friends. And that is the best tool against phishing is knowledge. So train your people.
Thank you, Rodney. Our
Welcome.
next question is, we'll take the last two questions for today. Our next question is, do you usually do black, gray, or white box penetration testing?
Most of my pen tests are white box. So the people I typically end up getting authorization to run the pen test from is usually the C-suite. It's not the IT directors. It's either the board of directors or the executive director or the CEO or the CFO or the CRO, the chief risk person. That's usually who my initial conversation is to get authorization to run the pen test. And then after the contract is signed, then I get sent over to the IT director or the IT shop. And then I start asking my scoping questions. So that's usually how I get that done. And then I get that information from them and I can run the pen tests.
Thank you. Our last
Welcome.
question is, where can you get all the penetration testing template documents for legal and business practices?
You can Google them. Another thing you can try is, everybody likes their chat GPT these days. So, ask chat GPT, hey, write me up a penetration test contract for such and such company. And, make sure it outlines and then put all the stuff that I had in my presentation today. Make sure it outlines this, that, this, that, this, that, this, that, and the other. And then Google already existing contracts for pen testing. And then make your own out of all those things. Make sure just make sure you cover yourself for anything that may go wrong in your pen testing, so that you lower your risk of being liable for any kind of miscommunications or damages. Like, you just want to make sure everything is communicated to the T in your contracts, not only to protect you, but to protect the client also. So you can Google them. There's a lot of contracts out there for you to get. And if you end up contacting me for a pen test, I send you my statement of work, you'll see what my contract looks like. So feel free to use all of those.
Thank you, Rodney. I think we have
Welcome.
time, so we can take one more question. This will be the
Awesome.
last one. Transparency versus confidentiality. How can penetration tester balance the need for transparency in their findings with the obligation to protect client confidentiality?
I send everything through encrypted email, and I have very thorough conversations with the client prior to the pen test, during the pen test, and after the pen test. So afterwards, to make the experience even better for the client, I don't just hand over the reports and then we're done. I do a debrief with the stakeholders on the client side. So I have the IT people there. I may have the board of directors there, have the CEO and some of the C-suite people there, and we'll go over the reports. We don't go over the technical reports. I have I have an executive summary that I give. I have a consolidated report, which is a mix of the executive summary and the technical report. The technical report is really more for the IT people. Then there's an activity log that shows everything I did and when I did it and how it looked. And then there's an evidence file that's got pictures of everything that I was able to compromise. So I give all that stuff over to the client, and I transmit that over an encrypted means, an encrypted channel. I use encrypted email for that, or I put it in a cloud store and send them the link to it in an encrypted email. So I really try to keep that information safe when I'm sharing that with them, so that we don't have it leaked. But I want to be transparent. The conversations are typically scary for the client, but their IT support is usually pretty worthy and well qualified to be able to fix all the things that I find. And that's the other thing that goes into my report. So recommendations on how to fix everything I find in the pen test. So I'm not just saying, yes, you got this issue, your IPv6 is wide open. And I don't just leave it there. I tell them, like, this is how you can fix it. Use group policy to get rid of it. Use this to get rid of it. So there's always recommendations on how to fix. I just can't fix them. Yeah, but I always keep things confidential, and I'm very, very transparent with the clients so they understand what they need to fix and how it's going to affect them if they don't fix it.
Thank you to our wonderful speaker, Rodney, for answering those questions and for the great
Welcome.
presentation and the knowledge shared with our global audience.
Yes, thank you.
So it was a pleasure to have you with us, and we are looking for more and more sessions with you. And before we conclude the webinar, Rodney, would you like to give a small message to our audience?
Hey, thank you all for being here. Thank you for listening to me. I got a bunch of requests on LinkedIn I already see popping up, so please keep reaching out to me. I love building this community of professionals with all of you. Thank you, EC Council, for facilitating this and giving me a platform to speak. If any of you looking for pen testing to be done, please reach out to me. I'm happy to help facilitate that. And keep learning, my friends. The threat is only getting worse, and we have to be better. So keep sharpening your skills, and let's save the world. And I'll see you next month for my last talk of the session.
Yes, definitely. Thank you so much, Rodney.